Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people, shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future.
All grit.
Evolution. This is the future.
All grit.
Evolution.
All grit.
All right. Hey, good evening or good afternoon now, Lions fans. What's happening? This is Will Rock, and you are on the Rocked On Detroit Lions podcast. We're going to be joined today by First and Skol and Scolders and Spice from the Minnesota Vikings neck of the woods. It's going to be a fun afternoon talking football. We're going to bring them in. We've got Dustin and Sal here with us today.
Yo.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. How you doing today?
Not bad. It's a humongous game on Sunday. My goodness.
It is definitely going to be a big game. I guess what I'd like to start with is, we'll go ladies first. Sal, tell us a little bit about you and I guess, your podcast, how long you've been doing it, and why it's important to you.
Sure. Okay. Well, hi, I'm Sal, aka Sal Spice. I have been in the Vikings social media world since pretty much conception, I guess. I joined Vikings Twitter in about 2009. And that completely changed the trajectory of my life. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and I just met this amazing community of Vikings fans. Found this place where I finally felt like I found my people and I belonged after I started traveling here and stuff, going to games. And so I moved here to Minneapolis about 10 years ago. And since then, I have just been given all of these amazing opportunities, met so many cool people. Me and Dustin did a show together for how many years? You said 5 years, right? 4?
4.
4 years on the Believe in Sports Network, where we did that with Bryant McKinney, and we got to interview so many amazing players, such as, Randy Moss, Nate Burleson. I know that's one of your guys, and God, probably 50 or so more. But so that was a big thing where I gained a platform. I did a podcast with the local sports station here for a few years, and now here I am with you. And I do a show called Scolders and Spice on the Vikings First and Skol YouTube channel, which I've only been with them for about 2 months now. So it's my first time doing my own show by myself, where I'm actually responsible for production and content and all of that. I'm used to just showing up and people like Dustin do all the work for me. So it's a little bit of a learning curve. But why it's important to me, it's just kind of like I was alluding to, being a Vikings fan has just, completely changed my life. It's how I know how I have this community now, how I have all of my friends who have become my family, and the bond that I have with these people over the shared heartache, highs and lows, disappointments, head scratching, off-season dramas, love boats, all of those things has just really made my life worth living. So
very interesting. A lot of detail, a lot of work, and you hit the nail on the head, man. When you're responsible for all of your own stuff, it's a different level. I can't tell you how many days I sit back and I say, I wish I had a production manager. I wish I had an assistant. I wish I had somebody just to make a thumbnail. It's it's tough work. It's a lot of work, and the amount of hours that go into it. I don't think that our respective fans really understand how much work is involved in this, and a lot of people do it for free or for very little money, and that just tells you how important the team is to you, which that's a great story. Dustin, how about you? Same question.
All right, I am 41 years old, just turned 41 last weekend. I am in
Happy
charge
birthday.
of Vikings territory. Thank you, sir. I'm in charge of VikingsTerritory.com. I've written about the Vikings for a little over 4 years. I've been a fan since 1996. I have a YouTube show called Vikes Now, which we have about episode per day. And then, I met Sal. First of all, I did a podcast with Bryant McKinney. That was, I just fell into that in the summer of 2020. And about 3 months into it, I got the courage to ask Sally to be on the show. She's kind of, if you look at her, she's kind of intimidating. And so she was like, hell yes, I'll do that. And then I never let her go. And she was a mainstay on that show. And then we collaborate weekly on Vikes Now. And so, I am a lifelong diehard Vikings fan that parlayed this into a career. And I'm happy to be chatting with you today about this. This is the most anticipated Vikings-Lions game in my lifetime, and I think in the history of the two clubs playing each other.
Well, I would definitely agree with your last point. I mean, this is the battle for first place in the North, which could be temporary. It is probably the biggest game that we're going to have this season because there's so much riding on the line. I think that there's two tracks that are going to be driven here. You know, whether or not, our teams can continue winning, after this game, whoever wins or loses, I think that there's going to be a divide here. I think that, one team might have a little bit of struggle and one team might not, but we'll see. Wonderful experience. And it's cool that you were able to parlay this into a career. So for me, and, a lot of, my audience knows all about me, but for your audience that I've seen a few of them in here already, and welcome in Skol family. It's cool to have you guys in here today. I started this because, I had cancer last year, and for me, this was a way to kind of have therapy, but talk about my Lions and do something to help me kind of relearn how to talk again. It was very difficult. I always wanted to start a podcast, and I figured it was the right time to do it, and I was going to take my shot because you never know. It was a wake up call, and told me, look, you've got to do something. You've got to live out your dreams because this was the day that you may not have been here anymore. So I know it's kind of a little doom and gloom, but here we are, cancer-free, still fighting and helping others. And that's my goal now with Rock On Cancer Foundation is I'm all about helping other people. It's not just Michigan. It's not just Detroit. It's, anybody and everybody that we can try to help through the foundation. But welcome in. Let's talk some football. And I gave you guys a list of questions to kind of go through. So, I mean, we don't have to do it totally rehearsed, but I wanted to get some things out there to the fans to kind of preface this game a little bit. So let's have a little bit of fun with it too. My first statement is, look, the Vikings, coming off week 5 versus the Jets, they held on. It was a 23-17 win in London. They moved to 5-0, first place in the North, and headed into their bye week fairly healthy. Got a few things going on in the injury report that we'll get to, but Brian Flores' defense has been stifling incredible. Intercepted Aaron Rodgers 3 times in that game. And it really kind of made up for what I thought was a pretty bad performance by Sam Darnold in the Vikings offense. And I'll let you tell me otherwise. But Minnesota, they got, contributions kind of up and down, the roster that day. And my first question is really, are you concerned that it appears that the second half of the Vikings offense tends to kind of sputter a bit, especially in such a big game where the Lions have been known to sputter in the third quarter, just didn't exist until the last couple of weeks. And the turnovers, it didn't seem like the Vikings are really capitalizing on points, after the turnovers. So I haven't been able to really dive into all of those stats yet. And I know it's not one of the questions on your list, but I'm kind of curious to know, how well have they been with capitalizing on turnovers and kind of what happened in this game for the offense. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, and Dustin can fill in with more details. So I think that those stats about them kind of falling apart in the second quarter are pretty misleading, mostly because of the point differential that they've had going into the half. They've been playing with big leads with all of the games with the exception of the Jets game in London. I think that what happened there was Aaron Jones got hurt, and then I think that completely threw off the offense. They never really got in sync again after that. Sam did struggle in London quite a bit, and that's really the first time that we've seen that from him. So that's of course concerning, but I'm not really very concerned about it going forward. The Jets, they were playing, they are oh my God.
It's
Oh
all
my
right.
gosh. We were just talking about this take 5 seconds thing, right? Okay. The best secondary that they have played so far. Also, we all know how the London games go. They're almost always sloppy from both sides. You never wake up at 8:30 in the morning and watch a game and you're like, oh my God, that was like the best game I've ever seen. And from London. That's just not how it goes. So I think that having Aaron Jones out, that does concern me going forward because of how big his impact is on the offense as a whole. But I'm not concerned about Sam necessarily going forward after this at all.
It's funny, Sally. Knowing you for 5 years, you thought I was going to talk over you. To start
No,
there,
not
but-
talk over me. I'm saying you can fill in with, no, I meant you can fill in with the details of the stats and all of those things that you have on the top of your mind where I'm struggling to get out a word right now.
What a gentleman Dustin is. You know, ladies first, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, she should know that by now.
No, I
though.
do.
Yeah, so, okay, the Vikings offense face planted after Aaron Jones got hurt, and there was no debate about it whatsoever. The moment he hurt, we thought it was hip, but it was his hamstring. It went back to the Alexander Madison days of the Vikings offense where 3-and-outs were prevalent and we're rolling our eyes. In fact, both Vikings games in the last 3 weeks have been the same thing. You get out to a really hot lead. They were out 28-0 on the Packers, and then they let them back into it. So in terms of a long-term prognosis, I'm not concerned about the Vikings offense. I believe in Sam Darnold. I don't want him for the long term because that's why we have J.J. McCarthy. But I do think that he can do the thing this year. One of the you never have to worry about the arm talent with him. On turnovers and giveaways, that's a dirty little secret about the Vikings offense. They rank 29th in the NFL in most giveaways, and that's on special teams as well.
Really?
But nobody cares because A, they're undefeated, and then B, they rank second in takeaways right behind the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're balancing out their sins, and so long as that continues, I think the enterprise will be fine. They are capitalizing on a lot of their takeaways to the second half of the question that you asked. But I don't know a Viking fan anywhere that thinks, hey, we're 5-0. This is going to be smooth sailing from here on out, because within the last 21 years, they have collapsed from a 6-0 start in 2003 and a 5-0 start in 2016. So we all think this team is more balanced and better than that. But deep in our bones, I'm sure Lions fans have the same dread. I mean, look at the NFC Championship. You're kind of waiting on something bad to happen. So I don't think this team will encounter one of those like, oh my God, here we are at 5-5 all of a sudden. But it's in our DNA to at least recognize the possibility of it.
I love the realism because you don't hear that a lot from fans. You know, you either get the homerism or you get the in our neck of the woods, we call it, you know, SOL, same old Lions fans. It's either one way or the other. And I'm kind of right in, I split the baby. I'm like right in the middle. Mm-hmm. So I guess let me piggyback off of that. So you're 29th in giveaways, and then you're second in takeaways. Yeah, so you're kind of a, you know, you're canceling each other out a little bit. But here's what I want to throw at you. Something that the Lions just did this past weekend is took 5 turnovers and scored on almost every possession except for the last one where Hendon Hooker was in. Our defensive backfield is finally starting to show up. And matter of fact, Sal just said something too that, you know, it's kind of misleading because the Lions backfield gets a bad rap too, because we've been playing with leads and, you know, we play this bend but don't break defense in the second half, trying to keep everything in front of us, and we're letting teams just throw, you know, all over us, and you're gaining massive yards. So it is a little bit misleading, but what we had finally witnessed this past game was the defense finally showed up and taking the ball away. So I think that there could be an issue here if Sam Darnold tends to throw the ball in our direction. You may not be able to cancel it out. Any thoughts on that going into this game? Any worries, I guess I should ask?
I think it's interesting that they are both very similar teams in the way that they are structured and the way they've been performing. Like you just said, they get off the lead quickly. Then normally the box score is not as indicative of how dominating the game was. So I keep going back and forth about this. I think, I mean, same with the Vikings secondary. They're not great. I would argue that I would think the Lions are actually better with Branch and how he had 2 picks, right? Yeah. On Sunday. But I don't know. I think they both just have such explosive offenses. And Justin Jefferson, I would be curious to get your thoughts, how you think that the secondary is going to cover Jefferson, because I think I think they're going to have a tough day.
Yeah, and I want to get to that in a second because I feel because I feel like it's a double-edged sword with Jefferson and the Lions. We've seen it both ways. But we'll talk about that here in just a moment. So let me ask you this. I assume you guys either watched or gleaned some of the Cowboys game versus the Lions, maybe to kind of get an idea of what's coming in.
And to make fun of Mike Zimmer.
There you go. Where do you guys see your Vikings having any success, against the Lions? And I guess we'll start with your offensive keys to the game. We'll start there. What are your offensive keys to the game, based on what you've witnessed this last game and kind of where the Lions are trending right now?
So Aaron Jones was limited in practice yesterday, and that was the almighty good sign. If he would have been a DNP, then we would have probably had a different tune on this podcast. For right now, he is the straw that stirs the drink. He gets 6 yards every time his fingertips touch the ball. And so the keys to the game is that guy playing well, or if he only, gets 10 touches or so, that his substitute Ty Chandler doesn't be a turtle and back into a shell like he was in London. He didn't play well at all, but he's had a couple remarkable games as a member of the Vikings. What I was most intrigued by when I pulled up the numbers, basically right after starting at the bye week, is in the past season and a half, when the Lions have started this pretty magnificent come up, you could always bank on the defense being somewhere in the 20s in terms of its efficiency. And I thought I'd pull that shit up and see it this time, but no, the DVOA substitute or metric that I enjoy, the Lions are like 4th best in that too. So not only do we have to worry about the offense because they're going to get theirs, I think the Vikings assignment on defense will be about containment. But typically when I can scout the Lions, it's like, well, yeah, we'll be able to run up the score in the meantime, but it doesn't look that way. So the key is for the Vikings to run the ball efficiently, because they've shown through these 5 games, if they do that, then Sam Darnold can cook. And I don't really care if he throws an interception or 2. That's just probably what he does. I don't expect elite play from him. He costs $10 million. But so long as the running game is chipping off or keeping the secondary of the Lions honest, that's what I consider the primary offensive key.
Sal, I want to get your take too, but before I get there, I will say this. I warned everybody about Sam Darnold in the preseason. I warned everyone. And I said that, even though you brought in JJ McCarthy, I expected Sam Darnold to win that spot. Sucks that JJ McCarthy went down. But I think now you're seeing that Sam was brought in for a reason. The guy's always had a rocket launcher attached to his shoulder. And he's a hell of a quarterback. He's seen just about everything in this league from a defensive standpoint. Very smart quarterback. Definitely can wing the ball. Like the best of them. So you have a really good quarterback. He does tend to make some mistakes here or there, but he's definitely a really good quarterback. So Sal, what do you think? What would be a good offensive key against this Lions defense? Which, of course, we're headed into our first game without Aiden, which is no surprise now to everybody that. He was a big part of our pass rush. And I think this is going to be more of the pass rush by committee that we already had this season. It's just going to be even more of it. And maybe not so much of it needed. To your point, Dustin, Aaron Jones needing to run the ball. The Lions don't let anybody run the ball. And I'm wondering if we're going to be able to continue that trend this weekend and try to hold Justin Jefferson accountable, which is a very tall task. So, Sal, what do you think? Offensive key versus Lions defense?
Well, I completely owe Sam Darnold an apology. I was not somebody who was, I knew that he was going to have one of his better years, of course, because of Kevin O'Connell. I trust that Kevin O'Connell knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. And I knew that there was a reason that he chose to go after him in free agency, because he knew that he could work with him the best. But I also thought, well, there's kind of slim pickings here. So I didn't think that he would be capable of this. And I don't think anybody knew that he would be capable of this, even him, maybe, that he's NFC Player of the Week for for September, and all of the accolades that he's had so far this season. But as far as, and also our condolences on Aiden Hutchinson. That is absolutely horrifying to watch. And he's one of my favorite players to watch in the league. Definitely my favorite defensive player to watch in the league. And you don't want to see that if it's a division rival or not. You just never want to see that from somebody so young and so talented. So that's really devastating. And I wish that this wasn't the case going into this game. But I think this is the best offensive line we have seen from the Vikings in as long as I can remember. And so that is a reason that Sam has also been having success, because he's had time to let plays develop, to get deep down to Jefferson and things like that. So I don't want to copy Dustin completely, but I do think that Aaron Jones and the run game getting established is the biggest key to this game, because that is the only time that we have seen this offense struggle, is when he wasn't available.
So let's back up to Aaron Jones' injury. It was reported a hip, and now it's reported as a hammy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they I guess they're kind of interconnected, which is news to me. One of the, I think ESPN, Kevin Seifert, or one of those like spun it and was like, well, it's connected to this bone. And it's like, I know what a hip is. I know what a hamstring is. So
Right.
Evidently he either has both or it was misreported to begin with.
Interesting. And you think that he has a shot to play? I thought he was going to be out this weekend, but I guess we'll see this afternoon.
Yeah, you should get a quasi verdict today. Ian Rappaport said this morning that Jones is expected to play. I think he'll play, but it'll be like 50-50 workload with he and Ty Chandler.
What about Hawkins? Oh, go ahead.
I would say the tough position that we're in with these injuries is that we have this huge game this Sunday, a regular season game in October, but then we play again on Thursday night.
Oh, geez.
So
I didn't look that far ahead, I guess.
Yeah, so we play the Rams next Thursday. So they're in a tough spot of, okay, do we get on a normal week? Maybe if they were playing the Sunday the following week, these guys would be good to go because they'd have a whole week after that. But that they're playing on a short week right after that, I think that's why they're not going to push Hawkinson in, even though I'm sure he is ready to go. They don't want to risk it when they've only got 4 days to recover. And that's, I think, why Aaron is on the fence if he's going to be playing.
And that's what was my next question was TJ Hawkinson, if you guys thought that he was going to get a chance this weekend, of course, against his old team. But I hate to bring this up. Wasn't Kirby Joseph the one that knocked him out last year? It was.
Yeah.
So
there's no mystery about that one.
we hear, we've been hearing it, recently that, some fans think that our team is dirty. And I think that the evolution of the league is what it is with these, where you can hit, where you can tackle, and over the middle is now, off limits. And they've made it so difficult. And, big guys, you got to go low on. And, I think it's tough. I don't think Kirby's necessarily dirty. I think he's just had a bad rap over 2 hits, which last year was against the Rams tight end and then Hawkinson. So I mean, crap happens. I mean, we looked at the Cardinals game, right? I mean, that's what I thought was dirty. I mean, if you look at Marcus Davenport's injury, it looked like he was intentionally had his arm twisted up and chopped and, intentionally broken almost. And just the way players are finishing with their helmets, it looked dirty, but, allegedly, that's just the way it looked to me. Viking, go ahead.
On Hawkinson, I was told by a guy who's usually right, giving me information earlier this week, that there was 0 chance Hawkinson was going to play. It sounds like he's ready, but to Sally's point about the turnaround in 4 days, why not wait when you're 5-0 until the follow-up game, which would be Thursday against the Rams? So I have TJ Hawkinson fantasy shares all over the place in my 25 leagues. So I'm chomping at the bit to have him back, but I don't expect him back one bit. I do think Jones will be there, and then it's kind of offensive lineman Dalton Reisner. It's kind of in the same boat as Hawkinson, where he's healthy, but I don't know if he's actually going to play or if he's going to, get into the lineup over Ed Ingram.
Well, I can't say that I'm disappointed if Hawkinson is not in there, because that is just an absolute animal of a tight end that can create headaches all over the field. The Vikings did pick up Cam Akers. I should have piggybacked that off of Aaron Jones. Any chance that he's up for this weekend? Is he going to be part of the game plan?
I think so. Maybe like kind of ornamental, like just in case, because he's on the active roster. You don't really trade for a guy and toss him on the practice squad. So they'll be in an odd situation where they would have Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler, Myles Gaskin, and Cam Akers. I think if something happens again where Jones immediately retweaks the hamstring / hip, then you could see a little action. But Cam Akers is already familiar with the Vikings offense. He was here most of the season last year, but I wouldn't expect like, oh my gosh, Cam Akers got 12 carries. I would say it would be kind of like mop up duty, if any.
Okay. I guess we'll continue with injuries here. I noticed Sam Darnold took that nasty hit to the ribs, and it looked like some bruised ribs potential, but I haven't really seen anything in an injury report to speak to that. Has there been anything said about Sam Darnold in this rib issue? You feel anywhere that it's going to hinder his ability to throw the ball?
No, there was some, I guess, hopeful conspiracy theorists that said the moment he took that shot in London was when he started to suck. And so maybe that's what caused it, and not the Jets secondary under Robert Salah. But no, Darnold also hurt his knee. Was it week 2, week 3?
I think it was a Texans game.
Yeah, the week 3. And yeah, so he's gone. He's been beaten up a little bit, but no, he had the perk of the bye week. If it would have been a quick turnaround, maybe he would have been on there with the ribs, but no, he's a full go, at least in terms of being available against the Lions.
Well, I'm a little disappointed to hear that. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm glad he's good. We'd rather play you at your best, because I think that makes all the fans, feel better at the end of the game, when you know that you got their best and you're able to beat them. And the Vikings probably feel the same way. You'd rather.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't have injured Hawkinson then.
Right. Sure.
Anyway, he says.
So Flores said that he likes to fight fire with fire when he was asked about the Lions' explosive offense, which in the last couple of games, the Lions have put up over 25 explosives on the offense side of the ball. So how do you see that going down for Flores? What does he really mean he's going to fight fire with fire? He's got a weird defense. And I would say last season, the Lions were able to manage it fairly well. And when Jared Goff is cooking and he's able to get through his progressions quickly, get the ball out in under 2.6 seconds, I feel like we can negate, this crazy blitz package that Flores puts together. My main question here is the Vikings defense, and their keys to the game. And what does Flores mean by fighting fire with fire? What is he going to do this weekend?
Dustin, you can take that.
Right.
I'll say a little bit. So, I don't think we know what it's going to look like, because he changes everything so drastically from game to game, and quarterbacks come after the game and say, I've never seen anything like this before. I've never played a defense like this before. So he's had 2 weeks to prepare for this now. So I'm really excited to see what it looks like. The difference from last year is this year he has more of pieces to fit his system that he went out and handpicked, such as Jonathan Grenard, Van Ginkel. Unfortunately, I don't think Blake Cashman's going to play, which is a bummer, but I think that's what's taken this team to the next level. He's found guys that fit his scheme, will do what he wants to do the way he wants to do it, which is going to change drastically from week to week.
Yeah, when he says I'm going to fight fire with fire, what he's saying is I'm not changing a damn thing, because this is his MO. So what you'll quickly find while watching Sunday is last year the Vikings had to come up with, I guess, supplemental blitz personnel because the defensive pass rush didn't get home as frequently as we'd like. It was Danielle Hunter, who's fantastic, and DJ Wanham, who's mid, and your guy Marcus Davenport was hurt most of the season. So we didn't have the pass rushing depth to get home organically. So you had to bring dudes like Josh Metellus, the safety, and Harrison Smith and blitz them. This year, they haven't had to use that exoticism to get to quarterbacks because their depth is already so good. So he's going to continue what he's doing. And you talked about Goff not really facing too much heat from the Vikings last year, or at least battling through it quite well. It's a different animal now because you're not going to have like weird guys coming to blitz off the edge. It's going to be the normal guys, and then you'll have the typical disguises that Flores likes to do. So when he smirks and says, I fight fire with fire, it means he's not going to change his defense to accommodate the Lions. He's going to keep doing what he's doing and hope that it's good enough.
Well, I guess let's talk about these guys. So you picked up Van Ginkel. Mm-hmm. You picked up Cashman, right?
Yep.
Ivan Pace had a crazy year last year. Grenard you picked up.
Dallas Turner.
And then Dallas Turner in the draft, which Dallas Turner was my number 1 overall edge next to Jared. Well, number 2 next to Jared Verse. Now Cashman's out, right? Has he already been ruled out?
He's doubtful, but he'll be ruled out later today.
Okay, so really the Lions need to worry about Van Ginkel and his ability in coverage, and also taking the ball away, and Greenard's ability to get after the passer. I mean, Ginkel can too, but what have you really enjoyed so far about this linebacking core, and what are they going to do that is going to make it really difficult for, the run game potentially with, the Lions have one of the best run games in the league. What is this defense going to be able to do or attempt to do to the Lions offense this weekend?
About the linebacking core, the thing I have enjoyed is the versatility. Blake Cashman won't be a factor this weekend, we don't think, but his pass coverage as a off-ball linebacker is fantastic. And Jordan Hicks last year, who had that job, was decent. But Blake Cashman is extraordinary at it. He's also Eden Prairie native, and he's young, so he'll be around for a while. Ivan Pace can do both. He's a little bit better of a pass rusher than he is in coverage, but he's still getting good at that. You'll see a guy named Camus Grazier-Hill filling in for Blake Cashman this week. They don't really play Brian Asamoah, who was a third rounder a couple of years ago. So we have more trust in the linebackers, especially when they're revamped with Cashman. We'll see how it looks this Sunday. And it's not like we went through the end of the Mike Zimmer era not long ago where we had decent linebackers, but they were getting old and they really couldn't do it all. And you fast forward to this season, and even though Van Ginkel's not an off-ball guy, he has some of those traits. So there's youth, versatility, speed, and just kind of that rejuvenation.
I would say I love it, but that would be a lie because I'm not looking forward to going up against it. The Lions have a stacked offense. I think that everybody knows that by now. We've got 6 identified playmakers now. You got David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, off to a huge start, and now the emergence of Tim Patrick. And we'll throw all that in with the number 1 offensive line in the league. And that's why I was asking about the linebackers, because so far the Lions have gone up against what was an amazing Rams defense in week 1 that was fairly healthy. The Tampa Bay Bucks, which is one of the better defenses in the league. Todd Bowles has always something up his sleeve. Even the Cardinals. They had a pretty good defense, but just not that day. The Cowboys are supposed to be good, but they disappeared. I guess where I'm going is the Lions have gone up against some pretty tough defenses this year to start already. How can this defense match up against 6 playmakers where let's just say you're going to drop into coverage, you drop 2 back, you go into a zone, which if you go into a zone, the Lions are probably going to eat them up over the middle with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tim Patrick, the heavy crossing game, even Sam Laporta, if he's dragging Grenard or if he's dragging Ginkel, across the front of the defense there, will have opportunities. But let's say you come back up into the box, right? You go heavy up into the box, you start to blitz a little bit more. What's to say that then, our run game doesn't get going or, the quick screen game doesn't get going, which we haven't used, by the way. I'm wondering if we're going to pull out the screen game this weekend against this linebacker core. So it'd be interesting to see. So what do you think about these playmakers that the Lions have on offense? Be honest here. Is this going to be an explosive game? Is it going to be a shootout? Do you think your defense really has a shot? And how are they going to get it done?
Go, Dustin.
Want me to go? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to take too much.
You're the X's and O's. You're the X's and O's. I'm the color commentator. That's our roles here.
All right. So a little random backstory. I am just as much as an NBA and basketball fan as I am a football fan, and my lifelong guy is LeBron James. And so when you're going up against LeBron James in these 21 years, all you want to do is contain him and keep him to his 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and that's how I view the Lions. I know that they're going to get theirs. So if the Vikings can hold them to 24 or 27, I will be happy. I don't expect there are too many playmakers, Pro Bowlers to defend, and I don't have visions of grandeur like, oh my God, Van Ginkel's going to shut down all these. It's just not going to happen. So the thing that gives me solace is the Vikings defense right now is so much better than everybody else's. It's really weird. This isn't my opinion. I'm talking about per DVOA and EPA per play. Like the Vikings could give up 51 points on Sunday, and there's probably still going to be ranked top in the NFL, like for the defensive numbers. So it's not that we're coasting on this defense that's getting lucky with some flukes. It has been utterly dominant, and they're going to get the almighty test with all of those playmakers you mentioned. So I'm anxious to see, what flushes out. But in terms of, hey, we're going to have a 17-10 game or some shit like that, it's not going to happen. I hope the Vikings can hold them between 24 and 27.
So really, are you thinking it's going to be a fairly close game? Like maybe, Minnesota, I guess if you're considering Minnesota's going to win, it's by a field goal. It's by 5 points, 7 points, closer game.
Yeah, the only problem there is, and close your ears, is in these games against the 49ers and Texans, I was thinking, oh God, if they win it all, it's gonna be a nail biter. And then they just beat their ass. And
Mhm.
so I'm trying to find the happy medium. I don't think that the Vikings are gonna steamroll the Lions. That would be really odd. But this is exactly how I felt going into the Texans game, and then they crushed them by 27. So yes, when we get to our forecast, I think it'll be a one-score game. And the only reason I'll ultimately pick the Vikings is because of home field advantage. If this thing was at Ford Field, I'd pick exactly the opposite.
Man, it's fun having conversations with people that enjoy being realistic.
You must got some duds that come on because
Yeah.
we're not that extraordinary.
No, the guests that I have that come on, they're pretty realistic bunch, but you know, just I don't know, just fans in general, you know, I think that they get a little too excited and lose realism a little bit because it's such a different feeling being a Lions fan right now. You know, we haven't had this, you know, we're almost too greedy, which is what I keep telling people. We're too greedy. Like we expect, like you have the number one, defensive pass rusher in the league, and we should have another one on the other end is what people are thinking. Like it just doesn't happen like that. This isn't Madden. You gotta.
It's been an interesting evolution to watch the Lions fans the last few years. I actually love the Lions. I've always liked them my whole life. I actually got in trouble from my dad in like 3rd grade because I had a Lions pencil in my pencil box with my Vikings on. And I've always loved watching them. And I relate to their fans so much because while you guys have had it way worse than we have because it's been pretty much consistently low, we've had a lot of the heartbreaking losses. And so I've always admired Lions fans that they have remained so loyal, so resilient when they've had really no reason to be, right? Like there's been terrible front office decisions. I don't have to tell you. And I've just always admired them. I love them when they come to games. I always want them to come to Tailgate. I just think that they're so great. And then the last couple of years, and I keep telling myself it must be the Gen Zers or the people who just hopped on the wagon now because it's cool. But man, it has been like a night and day difference in just 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, we're a pretty eclectic group. I got to tell you, it's an interesting fan base, but we're all love. I feel like the majority of Lions fans are just really good people, and we try to have a good time. But we're just enjoying the moment,
As you should. You deserve it.
You get these moments apparently twice every 50 years. We've got to enjoy it. But I think that you brought up something talking about the front office. Watching from afar, watching Brad Holmes cook, right? I'd have to say for anybody to see what's gone on in Detroit over the last 4 seasons has been amazing to watch. I mean, not only as a Lions fan, where your general manager's hitting on draft pick after draft pick, and then the free agents that he does bring in, they're not the big heavy hitters, but they are playing right away. They're helping the team. 6th round picks, 5th round picks are starting in year 1. It's like this is not normal. So watching that happen from afar, I would love to know what you think about Brad Holmes, but then also I'd like to know, what do you think? It's Kwesi, right? What do you guys think about Kwesi and how well he's done rebuilding your franchise or kind of retooling your franchise a little bit?
So I have nothing but respect for Mr. Holmes. The transformation of the roster to me has felt really rapid, but maybe since you're bogged down in it every day, it's been a long slog. But to me, it's like we looked up in the middle of the 2022 season and we realized the Lions were good. And so I know it's been methodical over these last 4 or 5 drafts that you mentioned. And yeah, we really went. I remember when Dan Campbell gave the kneecap speech, I remember telling somebody at work the next day, like, he's either going to be clowned for that for a long time, or he's going to look like a badass in 3 years if his team's good. And because the team is so good, now that comment looks really cool in hindsight because he knew what he was talking about. On Kwesi, yeah. I think the 2 folks on this show, we love Kwesi. He's had a couple flaws. His very first 2 moves as general manager were strikeouts on Lewis Cine and on Andrew Booth. And a lot of fans assumed that because the young general manager didn't nail the first 2 picks that he must suck. But some of us have a little bit more vision that's like, you know what? You're going to get better at your job. That's just kind of how the world works. And so this free agent class, most recently, the Jordan Addison draft pick was pretty sweet. we love JJ McCarthy. We hope that we're having a show with you 1 year from now where we're talking about him, totally cooking. So I'm a Kwesi guy. I think Sally is there too. And then we have absolutely 100% job approval of the head coach, Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, Kevin's been remarkable. What do you think, Sally, of what your front office has done over there?
Well, I think that that's another similarity between the Lions and the Vikings is the head coach. While they are both very different, they are super emotional, dialed in guys who you can tell would do anything for any of their players and vice versa. And so I think I love to see how emotional like Dan Campbell gets, because you can tell that he cares so much about every single one of those guys in that room. And Kevin O'Connell is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Kwesi, I agree. First draft was rough. We kind of were like, what are we going to do with this guy? What's going on here? But since then, it has been much better. The free agents, as Dustin just brought up, and also he's had a lot of success bringing in undrafted free agents.
Mm-hmm.
However, my one critique is quit trading within the division. You don't need to be giving more draft picks to the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
And refresh my memory. What did they do? What did you guys do with those picks?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember.
Jameson Williams and Josh Paschal, or however you say it.
That sounds about right. I know we moved the picks up and down to kind of make it work, but yeah, I think the Jameson Williams one sounds about right.
So that's my biggest critique right there.
Remember, I told you my short-term memory is terrible.
That's right.
So the Lions, we kind of talked about this one already with the Lions. On paper, we're not really showing that strong defensive, back end. But when you watch it and what you've seen kind of transform over the last couple of weeks, the biggest question I have is, what are the Vikings going to do, in the pass game, going up against this Lions backfield where I'm hopeful that Carlton Davis is going to play. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't play, then this could turn nasty in a hurry. Tyrion Arnold's had trouble with pass interference. This last game played great. I mean, phenomenal game from him. What I love seeing from Tyrion Arnold is the fact that he is hip to hip. He's right there to make a play. He's traveling downfield, but he's just getting a little too aggressive. What do you feel that your offense is going to be able to exploit? Is Sam Darnold, do you think, going to try to pepper Tyrion Arnold to get those penalties coming? I mean, where do you think that you could have some immediate success? And how well do you feel that Justin Jefferson is going to be able to play in this game against this defense?
Is that me again?
Yes, you.
All right. So that's the one thing I really enjoy about this matchup, whether Carlton Davis plays or not, is we just talked about the wondrous roster construction by Holmes, which is correct, but they don't have an absolute shutdown corner. Maybe right. Arnold gets there. That's why Jefferson has feasted on the Lions in his career, is even looking at this depth chart, Carlton Davis or not, I don't have any apprehension that Jefferson's going to get his. I did have that apprehension 2 weeks ago against Sauce Gardner, and wouldn't you know it, Jefferson had a quiet game with 92 receiving yards. So, and then if you take into account the Hutchinson's not going to be there and Davenport's not playing, it'll be a diminished pass rush with a good secondary that doesn't have a keynote performer to stop Jefferson. But let's say they sell out and they bracket cover Jefferson or whatnot. You're still going to have Jordan Addison on the other side. And we haven't even had to talk about, whether or not he's going to play or if he's suspended or hurt. He's just available this week, which is pretty cool. So if they're able to stifle Jefferson, you're going to have a dynamic playmaker in Addison. And in week 8 and beyond, we're going to be able to talk about Jefferson in this mix. That's the cool part of this. So regrettably, for your sake, I don't have any big, oh my God, what's Jefferson going to do with this secondary? I think he's going to get his. It's all about whether or not the complementary ground game is there, like we talked about 15, 20 minutes ago.
Sally, do you have any piggyback on that?
No, I agree. I think that Justin Jefferson is going to have a great game. I mean, he hasn't really had a bad one at all this year, and he's been great at drawing PI calls as well this year. So I think that's something that the Lions should definitely be concerned about.
It's definitely an art form from an experienced wide receiver on how to trap the arm. And then when you trap the arm, it makes it look like the DB is holding, but they're really not. It's something that he does well. Justin Jefferson.
Which ref crew we have yet?
I have not looked. I hope it's not Brad Allen. We'll be all right. Maybe you don't understand that reference, but that was the Cowboys game last year.
That's the the offensive line
Oh,
substitution
yeah.
guy, right?
Yep. So Justin Jefferson, he's been averaging 134 yards against the Lions, 17.3 average over the last 8 games. The Lions had one really good outing against him in 22. I think that was a game that he might have actually gotten injured in that game, if I remember correctly. If we can keep him under 100, 125 yards, I think that's a win. I really do. I think that's a win for the Lions. And to your point, I do think that the Lions are probably going to bracket. I think the biggest mistake they make on these receivers, I mean, they played really well against, CeeDee Lamb last week, but that Cowboys team just looked, all sorts of messed up. They didn't look good at all. I don't think we're going to have that luck against the Vikings. I think if they do bracket him and someone gets up into his chest off the line, that's how you can attack Jefferson. But you have to get up into his chest on the line and have someone over top that can then pick him up when he burns you after you get him off rhythm. His whole thing is rhythm. And the one thing that the Lions really bother me with is they never get up on the line and press these guys and jam them on the line. They just kind of let them do their thing. They might come up and press a little bit, but they never get hands on. And I'm not sure why, they do that. But if they can do that to Jefferson this weekend and bracket him and force the ball to Addison, force the ball to what's the other guy, Naylor? Yeah. Then I think the Lions have a better opportunity with limiting the pass game too. But it's Justin Jefferson. He's gonna get his. It's just the pass rush that may not be available is going to have to do something different to get to Sam Darnold, which we might be, leveraging our linebackers. We could be leveraging a DB. We might be rolling 5 DBs the entire game. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be a fun game. I think that both teams are going to make a lot of plays, which is going to get us now to some, predictions, if you will. Whoever wants to start first, who do you think is going to be like your players of the game in this game? Offense, defense, just throw out some names. What do you think is going to happen? Give me your playmakers, if you will, offensive, defensive.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with saying I don't think a playmaker of the game is going to be Clay Martin or his referee crew because they have actually only thrown, I believe now I can't see because it's 6 DPI calls all year. So I don't think that that's going to be a very flag heavy game for the Vikings. Well, I don't want to just say the obvious and say Justin Jefferson, but I do think that he's going to have a very good game. I'm going to go with, I think Andrew Van Ginkel, he will have another pick. I do think he's going to get after, I think he's going to get Goff off quite a bit, and he's going to be running around more than he has all season, and that's going to get him off kilter. I'll say, let's see, who should I say is going to have a big game here? I think both Addison and Jefferson are going to have big games. I am concerned about the run game, as we've said several times now. Even if Aaron Jones is just limited, I do think that's going to have a big impact. But yeah, that's what I'll go with. Dustin, what do you think?
I don't think we could ever just say Jefferson like in a question like that. It's like watching the Warriors and saying, hey, Steph Curry needs to play well.
Right.
We get it. So I'm going to say Addison because I think he'll have a little bit he'll be freed up a bit. There'll be some relief in the secondary for him to cook. He's due for one of his signature games, where he gets 80 yards and a touchdown or two. So although I think Jefferson does just fine, I think Addison can be the difference maker as a 1B to him. And then on defense, Jonathan Grenard ranks, I think heading into the bye week, he ranked at the top of the NFL in pressures and then only had the one game where he had 3 sacks against his old team. So I think Grenard is due to put a thumbprint on a game with a sack or 2. So give me Grenard on defense and then Addison to score on offense and take some of the pressure off Jay Jets.
I like it. So, Dustin, we're kind of in the same boat. So I felt like, in my opinion, I think that the game is won for the Vikings with Sam Darnold. I think that he has to be the player of the game for the Vikings. Mm-hmm. But I do see where he's going to get some pressure, even though we're missing Aiden. And I'm really a big believer in our defensive backfield right now, especially after what I saw against the Cowboys. I think that, Sam's still going to put up 230 yards. I think he'll put up 2 TDs. But I think he's going to throw 3 interceptions, and I don't think the Lions are going to give up the ball. I don't believe that your team is going to get more than 72 yards on the ground, which is going to limit Jefferson. But I do believe Addison would be your best receiver of the day, 96 yards and a TD. Not sure who the second TD would come from or to. But I do believe that there's going to be a lot of fire, power in this game, kind of going back and forth. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm looking forward to, on my side of the ball, I'm looking forward to JMO. I think that JMO is going to have a pretty big game. I think that for whatever reason, he's going to get forgotten about. And it depends on whether or not the Vikings are going to sit back in their zone or are they going to come up and play man. We have a scheme for both. We have firepower for both. If they do both, we're just going to have to stay fluid, and I think that the way that Ben Johnson is operating right now and Aaron Glenn is going to have to get in his bag, deep in his bag against the Vikings, because this is not going to be an easy test. I think the Lions are going to put up about 150 yards of rushing on the ground. And, looking at the Vikings defense, you would say that that's going to be pretty difficult to do, but I think that they're going to be worried about JMO. And I think they're going to be worried about Amon-Ra. I think they're going to be worried about Tim Patrick and, all of the receivers that are going to be out there that can, make it rain, if you will. So that's kind of where I'm at. I got the Lions winning 34 to the Vikings 23. What do you guys think?
I thought you were a realistic guy.
I can't look. I can't bet against them in this game. I think the Lions have been through enough.
Well, it's not the outcome that I think is unrealistic. I think it's the way that you get there. But I don't know. Last week I said we'd have 160 on the ground. We had 180. And I didn't expect that. Mike Zimmer's worst defense in the league. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a fun game. I know my score is going to be a little off because I'm giving them double digits, but someone doesn't like the Vikes. I mean, normally you get a 3-point home advantage. They only got 2.5, and I don't understand that. But where do you guys think the score is going to be at the end of the day?
I'm kind of with Dustin in that I can't decide if I think it's going to be super close or a big gap there. I am I don't want to say I'm a doom and gloom. I like to think that I look at things pretty objectively, but for some reason this year, it just came out of left field. And I feel like all of the wins have been convincing wins. I don't feel like these have been flukes or, benefit of random things like a missed kick or, things that shouldn't have happened. I feel like they've been the dominant team in every game. So
they have been.
I think logically, I should say that it's going to be a close game. And I do think it's going to be the biggest regular season game that I can remember since Brett Favre returned to Lambeau. It's a huge, huge deal. And I'm so looking forward to seeing what US Bank Stadium atmosphere is going to be like. I feel like it's going to be playoff atmosphere. It's going to be so loud. The Vikings this week are practicing with sound pumped in every practice to get ready for the atmosphere for a home game. So I think that that's actually going to have a lot to do with the Lions performance because it is going to be so much louder in there than they've ever even experienced before, which it's been super loud in there when they've played before and they've had to go, hurry up. And then Dan Campbell, we've seen him make some mistakes on some calls to go for it on fourth down and things like that have bit him at the end of the game at US Bank Stadium because of those conditions. So I think it's going to be close, but I do think the Vikings are going to pull it out.
You just said something that doesn't make any sense to me though. Why are you guys pumping sound in? Are you guys not quiet on your offense as fans?
Well, I mean, for the most part, yes. I mean, you always have the ones who don't know what's going on and just don't shut up. So yeah, I think sometimes in there it is still pretty loud on offense when it necessarily shouldn't be, but not.
That's interesting.
Not
that's not fun to play with as a home team, but
I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't mean that it's like it's not like crazy difference. It's just sometimes, yeah, people are not really paying attention. I'm excited to see how many Lions fans are actually going to be there because historically there hasn't been many.
Really?
And so, well, no. Not until maybe last year, and
the Packers game always feels like an even split.
Yeah. Or almost.
We travel pretty well. I mean, I think that we've been traveling probably since we started to get good at the end of 22, the last half of 22. And ever since then, I mean, every field that we've gone to, it's been like, Ford Field West or Ford Field East or Ford Field South. I mean, we're buying tickets left and right. It got so bad when I tried to purchase tickets this year for group outings, I had to hide that I wasn't a Lions fan. The minute that they noticed that I was a Lions fan, they wouldn't sell me tickets.
For where?
Packers was one. Minnesota was actually okay with it. But we couldn't get
from
direct. No, direct from group outings, group events.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just call the Vikings direct. So, Dustin, what do you think? Is it going to be a close game? Is it going to be a double-digit win? What do you think?
So the other times I thought it'd be a close game. Like I said a while ago, the Vikings just showed up and totally stomped the other team. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to say, oh, it's going to be down to the wire. I do want to say that it's really cool. We can be on this show talking about how the Vikings are 5-0 going up against the mighty Lions when I thought they'd be 1-4 right now. And if they were lucky, 2-3. We just didn't know how well this Sam Darnold experiment was going to go. And Sally's probably sick of hearing me say this, but I'm convinced in Kevin O'Connell's coaching progression, I'm convinced all he really needs is a decent quarterback in his system for his team to be good, like a Geno Smith or even Andy Dalton. If he was the quarterback of the Vikings, I bet you they'd be 4-1 right now.
Right.
So that's how much he's matured as a play caller. Of course, the defense helps with Brian Flores, and I think the Vikings are going to win 30-23. That's where I settled. I will not be flabbergasted one bit if they lose to the Lions, but I picked them to lose to the Jets. I thought, hey, they're playing Aaron Rodgers one more time. He's going to get the best of them. We're going to go into the bye humbled, so they'll come out hungry against the Lions. But it just feels stupid to pick against the Vikings until they show you otherwise. So I say 30-23 purple team.
I would agree. I just the only reason why I'm giving the Lions, and maybe I should be a little bit closer, but we're kind of flip-flopped in our scores. We've been winning on the road, and we seem to always take our first loss at home for whatever reason, but we win on the road the last couple of seasons. I got two more quick things here. One thing I forgot to point out. You were talking about offensive line earlier. Your offensive line bookends are incredibly good. I don't see where we're going to have an exterior pass rush working so well for the Lions, but I will throw this at you. I think that you are going to have a little bit of trouble, or the Vikings are going to have a little bit of trouble with Aleem and DJ coming up the middle, and potentially have more pressure coming through the middle with, Jack Campbell maybe free firing a little bit to get after Sam. So I do see that as a potential to get Sam flustered. And then the other thing, talking about Brad Allen in the Jets. So Brad Allen is going to be the ref of the Jets for the next 6 or 7 games.
Oh.
It's kind of weird, but I'll throw the tinfoil hat out there for a moment. Devontae Adams goes to the Jets, and Rodgers is still healthy. They fire their coach, and now Brad Allen is the ref for the next 6 or 7 games. Do we see an epic turnaround from the Jets where they somehow make something happen this season? I'm just going to throw that out there, but you guys have been great. I really appreciate you. Any final thoughts before we end today's pod?
Well, I will tell you that Aleem McNeil is guaranteed to feast, because anytime Garrett Bradbury goes up against a guy like him, he gets kind of munched on. So yeah, I don't think it's a big let's see how McNeil faces. He's going to get his. Thankfully, like you said, the hard part is figured out on the offensive line. They have the 2 bookends who one better be a Pro Bowler before too long in Darisaw, and O'Neill's already made it. So yeah, the interior pass rush for the Lions will get home, and I don't think it's too debatable.
I would agree. Well, you guys have been great. I really appreciate you guys taking this time, and if you guys do think about coming this way at the end of the year, let me know.
Okay.
We would love to. I've always wanted to go to Detroit. Like I think I told you, I wish I would have went on a Thanksgiving before now, but
yeah, Thanksgiving's fun. It's a fun day. It's a festive day, of course, but well, so it's Scolders and Spice, and it's First and Skol, and it's Sally and Dustin. You guys have been wonderful. I appreciate you guys. I will say good luck, because I'm a humble, respectable dude. It's going to be an awesome game, and look forward to Sunday's afternoon to see what the score is. Maybe I'll hear from you guys.
Yeah, same here. Good luck. I think it's going to be a great game either way.
All right. You guys have been great. Enjoy the
problem.
weekend.
Take it
Okay.
easy.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future.
All grit.
Evolution. This is the future.
All grit.
Evolution.